Hello, it's a Yorkshireman now living in Wales, back again. Before I really start the subject, I'd like to say hello to Irene and Michael and hope you're getting things sorted and excited for your next trip. Also, I'd like to say a big thanks to Anita Jones, who is the founder of one of the Facebook sites, the United Voices Senate Lobby Group. And Anita, with others, are doing a really good job at holding the Senate government to account, or the Welsh government to account, doing a far better job than members of the opposition who are actually paid to oppose things, but actually say many words, but there is no actions to go with the words. They are rather lacking in action, and you need to do better. Anyway, so on today. Today I was basically going to give you an overview on my take on some of the charity paperwork. But I started looking at it, I just thought, how did it start? So it all started due to a piece of legislation. And as you can see here, it comes from the Wales Act 2006 sections. From what I can gather, that bit basically makes it a legal obligation for the Welsh government stroke ministers to recognise formally charities or the third sector or non-government organisations. So literally a lot of people said, how do they get away with it, all these Sustrans and other people? It's because the Welsh government in 2006 thereabouts decided it'd be a good thing. And it also says, as you can see on the slide, unique to the UK. So my first port of call was, when I then looked at it, was looking at the money. Now let me just remind you, how does the money work? We get money taken from us by the Welsh government. The Welsh government should in theory spending it on things like essential things like roads and transports and hospitals and education and dentists. But quite often they give it to third sectors or charities. Now we have no say in this. So that's why I say third sectors or charities are unelected and unaccountable to us, because literally they are. So I started looking at the money, and there's a set of figures on this slide, and this was just using the internet because I'm thinking that's going to be quite reliable. But one thing caught me out, and that were the figures for 2018-2019, and it says £1.258 billion. Now the only problem is that came from the 2020-21 report. So at that point I thought, I don't understand, why is it like that? So I then started going through the reports, all the ones I could find. And sometimes history is helpful, sometimes it isn't. So I started off looking at this report here, 2017-18. And you can see it says 3.8 billion estimated value of the sector. Now, from what I can tell without going into boring detail, that's made up from a number of sources. One of us, of course, is us. So I then look at this 3.8 billion, I then go through this report looking at more numbers, and then I come across this, and then we've got this other one, third sector support Wales voluntary organisations. Now from what I understand, I think that's the organisation within an organisation to look after the charities. This is quite often how industries start up. So an industry or something takes off, then we need people to manage it. So then you have industry within an industry, and that never really works out well from what I've ever seen. So I added these two figures up, 27 plus 39, blah blah blah, I got a total of 67.2 million. So I'm thinking, right, okay. But that don't go anywhere near to the other money, the 3 odd billion. So I then found this page. Now I would have expected this to be somewhere else with saying a total, but as you can see here, we've got, it's underlined 3.231 million direct funding of the third sector. Now they've got their procured expenditure. Now I think we're going into this territory where we're renaming things in order to hide things. But as you can see, it also says another 45 million in 2017-2018. So right, okay, so why don't they just put that down as one figure. Clearly there's something wrong. I add it together and I get 368. And then out of the blue, it then sort of refers, we're going back to 2012 to 2013 where they got 294 million. And again, we've got the word procurement expenditure. Now, that doesn't really add up at all because there's no explanation for it. However, let me carry on. So the next report, we go to 2019-2020. This time, somehow they've lost money. So now it's down to 1.25 billion. We come across the same sort of little boxes again. This time it seems to suggest that there's 7.5 million given out. However, further down in the pages, we then see that it's 340 million. And this time we have direct funding. Now, again, this is my cynicism taking over. I then go on to 2020-21. And as you can see, we now have a different style. This time it would appear that there's 25 million, if I've got me reading of numbers right. However, as usual, now we've got other support for the third sector. I don't know why it changes. And now we've got the words direct funding. Only £471 million of our money going to the third sector. Wow, I'm glad they asked me. And then we get to 21-22. Same story, this time 8 million. However, surprise, surprise, again, in a place you wouldn't expect to look for it, awarded 516 million in hypothecated funding. Now, I had to look that up and take your pick, basically. It means I think it's just been assigned to something else, but they decided not to tell us what it is. So I generally have no idea. All I know is that 516 million pounds of our money has been given to third sectors without us being asked. So, as I was going through all this information, I just thought to myself, well, I still really don't know what's going on. All I know is that millions of pounds, possibly billions of pounds, are being sent to third sectors without our authority or knowledge. And what is really clear to me is I can't really work out the need for it. However, moving on, I then found this, and I've pulled this up from the Senate research, so it's an official document, and this is the website to show that it's all authentic. Now, there is a couple of links in there for PDF papers, but they seem to have disappeared. And I think the watchword of all governments these days, including the Welsh government, is if it's got something bad for you, delete, 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 and again, delete. And when someone says, have you deleted it, just say you didn't know, or it was a mistake, or, oh, I wasn't sure about that. That's what you need to do. So this paper, I managed to find this one, because it was there on the link. And as you can see, I will thank Hannah Johnson, the Wales Research Service. So thank you for this, because it helped me sum it up. And it starts off by saying the jigsaw puzzle for funding for the Welsh is complex. Yes, it is complex. But it also then goes on to say 31% of its income comes from public funds. And then it says that basically people become reliant upon it. Now, once organisations become reliant upon income, they have to maintain that income somehow. Now, how they do that is always interesting. Moving on with this paper though. So, the most important bit for me is on second paragraph. First Minister stated in 2016, our present level of funding is unlikely to be sustainable going forward. Sustainable. In other words, they can't keep it up. And this was said in 2016. So anybody who has carried on with this funding level, you are basically ignoring the advice from a body which is looking after the public interests. So when it comes to anybody denying it, you've got no escape, because it's there in this paper, thanks to people like Hannah and the research group, who clearly are trying to help the public look after the money, but are being ignored. So we'll go through this paper a little bit further. Then it goes on, and this is when I find the word procured contracts rather than grants. And then it goes on to say, Local authorities mostly do not have an effective strategic approach to working with the third sector, and inconsistencies in funding arrangements that make it difficult to demonstrate value for money. So my interpretation is, when the council get money and the third sector come, they're not saying, well, what are you doing with it? Can you show us value for money? Because for some reason they might not know how to ask those questions. And I sort of come back to the e-move scheme. Remember, £1 million over 2 years on e-move, 500 odd people cycled 2.7 miles. I mean, that's just a total valueless exercise, a waste of public money. And then, I now then find out, but each year, £187,000 was paid in wages to Sustrans, leaving a mere £60,000 for the people the money was supposed to help. That is not value for money. It also then goes on in this paper to cover fraud or financial mismanagement. I'm going to call it fraud, and it just gives us 3 cases. So again, they know it's an issue. So my question now is, how much fraud is now taking place, and why is it not being monitored properly? And then it goes on to scrutiny and lobbying. And this is from the Bevin Foundation. And basically it says that that there's an issue, because they've been concerned, Welsh society are reluctant to criticise for fear of losing funding. So basically, charities won't say, well, we don't agree with what you're doing because of X, Y and Z, because, as I've said already, it's a business for them now. It's not a charity, it's a business, and that happens a lot. And all you have to do is think about Sustrans and about 4 or 5 people splitting, or maybe more people, splitting £187,000. You would not criticise the government who saying you need to do this now. So it's an issue for me. So hopefully it hasn't bored you to death, but it is rather complex, and I'm still not 100% sure where the money's going or how much is being spent, because it's not clear. So if anybody's an accountant, or if anybody knows what's going on, drop us a line in the comments, or you can contact me via Facebook if you're on any of the sites via private message. But make sure you tell me what it's about, otherwise I'll just ignore it. So, thank you for watching. Hopefully you've learned something. As I say, I'm still myself quite confused about very clear that there's something wrong with the money. And it's my money, it's your money, it's everybody's money. So, if you have any better ideas, please let us know. As I've said, tick, like, subscribe. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Thank you.